LG,
This is the
be in
Grow
heaven.
Business Podcast with Cory Mosley.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting to watch shows that could never make it on TV today. Like, would never be allowed.
Like
or
the Game Show Network. Or some of those,
When you watch those things, like, even thinking about the old Family Feud with that guy that used to kiss everybody.
Oh, Richard Dawson. Yeah.
And he kissed all these women on the mouth.
Right.
Like, go right down the line, and everybody was with it. Like that's the thing. Like they're waiting for their turn to slob down Richard Dawson.
That was part of the deal, getting on the show.
Yeah, that. Like, could you imagine that today? Oh my goodness. Well, folks, yes, Willie H, you got to start telling us before you hit play here. But yeah, well, you know what this means. You know what our opening ramble. When you hear a good opening ramble, you know what that means. It's time. For our podcast. It's time for another episode. You are at the right destination, and that destination is the Grow Business Podcast. I'm your host, Cory Mosley. And today I'm joined in the co-host chair. You know him, you love him, you need more of him. LG 007 Lon Graham is in the house.
Voice of reason.
It's good to be here, Cory.
Yes, happy to have you here. And of course, the guy burning on all cylinders so far. We're only a minute and 36 seconds into the show, but he's doing well. None other than Willie H.
Hit the buttons, William.
That's right. We're going to see how he can do. Rate Willie H on a scale of 1 to 10. We love your comments. Send in your comments. Rate Willie H at CoryMosley.com. Send in us and let us know if he's doing a good job or not.
Yeah. Lord have mercy.
Yeah, exactly. All right, good. He's got a groove
He's on
going.
fire today.
Got a groove going. You're feeling good today. It's a scorcher out there. It's here, dude. It's what is it today? I want to see.
About 85.
It is 81. It's almost 80 now. Got up to 81. Felt hotter than that. Thank God for air conditioning though.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to see those 90s. We're going to see how hot is too hot for you, LG?
Depends.
Yeah,
Depends.
You 100 degrees. You're good.
Depends.
And you're outside.
Well, it depends on what I'm doing.
Well, I mean, you're outside having a good. I ain't got to go into details here.
I mean, if I'm outside,
Walking,
wiggling my
I mean,
toes in the sand with a cold drink, 100's fine.
Oh, you see that? I don't care what the circumstance is. I'm not interested in that. You know, well, that's you. I know
Like
you're
good
trying.
for me is about 80.
Yes, I think that is
80,
yeah.
85. That's a good window for me.
Yeah, I like 80.
Yeah.
I like that Orange County, California
Okay.
weather. That's
Yeah.
75 to 80.
Yeah.
Nice, maybe catch a little breeze. Because it's oppressive stuff. You know, the asphalt is
Bubbling.
percolating. Yeah, that's not what I'm not. Yeah, that kind where you go outside and then you turn right back around and come back inside. Yeah, that's too hot for me.
There's
so
no walking at lunchtime.
Willie H, what's
anymore.
hot to you? What's hot? 90 is your like. I ain't messing with that. Because listen, for years I had convertibles,
Right?
and it hit 85. That top was up. I can tell you that right now. There wasn't no top down. And you know, I had a few nice things where they had the air conditioning in the neck.
Right.
That is not enough to fight 95. City driving. Right. You're on a turnpike, top down. Now that sucks too because you can't. I like music.
Right.
So you can't really. It's a lose-lose.
Right.
But it's 95 degrees outside, and you're riding around town, running errands. You're not going fast enough.
No, enough.
That heat, and that's when I had more hair. So I think it's a whole, there's a whole lot to unpack there. But good news is we've got another great show for you guys today.
We do.
And we're continuing our theme here. We started this theme previously of doing pros and cons.
Yes.
So you kind of have contrast and really make the decision that's right for your business.
Right.
You're going to obviously get our opinion about it, but we're going to share the pros and the cons.
Right.
And I got an interesting one for you, LG. LG, as usual, does not know what we're going to talk about. That's part of my diabolical fun that I like to have. Sometimes he tries to take a peeky poo at the laptop to see what I've cooked up. But today, we are going to talk about the pros and the cons of using multiple marketing sources.
Okay.
Because I have heard the guru, we're not gurus here, but I have heard the gurus wax poetic on many occasions about picking one source
Right.
and going deep in that source, learning it, doing everything you can in that source, maximizing it, and let that be your primary driver
Right.
before you even think about diversification.
Okay.
And then I've heard gurus talk about omnipresence
Right.
and the need to be everywhere at all times.
Right.
Now, most of the time, those who say that have those budgets to be omnipresent, right?
Right.
You got to be everywhere. You got to be on these 8 channels, and you got to spend $100,000 a month on each of them. Hold that thought. And if you buy our course, we'll show you how to be everywhere.
Right.
Still need that 100,000. We leave that part out.
Right. Exactly. For $499,000.
Yeah, you could be everywhere. Yeah.
And we'll show you. Right.
Shout out to the course community. A lot of people learning a lot and doing well learning. So a lot of people put out a lot of great content. But
Yes.
most of our business owners know what we're talking about, though, when we say that, because we get the ads and we run ads. I mean, people it's advertising. You got to advertise your business.
Right.
So this idea, you can't, you don't want to do this or do that. Why? We need business like everybody else.
Right.
So, okay. So we're going to talk about that. Now, last time we started with the cons, I'm going to start with the pros.
Okay.
This time.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I like it.
The marketing sources.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Also, there's so much. I mean, even if you have the resources, right? You still, listen, we've got a full studio here. We've got Willie H. We've got editors. We've got social media people. And it's still.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I'm still waiting on something from Willie H. from like a month ago. No, I'm just, he said, multitask, William, multitask. So, yeah, it can get. Let's just face it. It's a lot. It can get complicated. You're trying to be everywhere. What is the right content? And then there's some. I don't want to start anything.
Yeah, you do.
But we need viewers. No, we need more listeners.
Right.
But and I want to make this point, then we'll get into this.
Right.
Some people have a luxury that other people don't have when it comes to growing an audience or when it comes to the advertising.
Okay.
In terms of making people want to advertise. We think about social media and people's obsession with followers, obsession with likes and all those things.
Right.
And, somebody's got, 1 million followers and they're like, you can do it too.
Right.
They're maybe extremely attractive. Right. There's just advantages.
Right.
That other people might not have.
Right.
Now, hey, certainly I have no problem being on camera. Ding! If you're watching YouTube, I just turned there.
Say amen.
Yeah, I have no problem being on camera. I'm comfortable and
Right.
I get some DMs. I'm happily married, but I get a few DMs here and there.
Hold on, Buckaroo.
Shout out to my wife.
Shout out to your
Who,
wife.
FYI, controls all my social media. So you're not DMing me, folks. Spoiler alert. So if you haven't gotten a reply, that's probably, somebody stepped in to vet that process. But some people have luxury. So, it's no different than like, you got to post, and you've got 22 people on your social media team. Right? You've got a whole room full of people designed to do that. Right. So I think everybody just has to have perspective while we're playing Keep Up with the Joneses or trying to look at what other people are doing and replicate that. I think it's important because there are a lot of people wearing themselves out. It's kind of like the software world to me. And I was having this conversation the other day with somebody about, there's a big push right now for everything to be all in one.
Okay.
Right. Oh, you won't need our software replaces this, and this, and you use ours. And the problem that I found, and tell me how I don't know why you smiling already. People have a tendency to start making faces before I even make my point. This is something all my life. Therapists, reach out to me and let me know why this is. But I find that there is direct benefits to specializing in one thing sometimes.
Yes.
Right? So yes, your software can do 10 things, but does the 10 things that they do them better than the company that does one of those 10 things, right? And goes deep in that area.
Right.
And I think about that in the calendar world, the CRM world. Like, there's a lot of those products out there. You know, like I have a gripe. Like, we use a couple different processes and services, and every time I try to use one service, there's something that I can't get from the other one.
Right.
You know, like calendar.
Okay.
You know, like HubSpot's one of the systems that we use here. And they have a great calendar system. It's integrated. Should be a no-brainer. I'm already paying for it in the software. But I still will use Calendly because Calendly, I have multiple calendars for the various things I'm doing. Maybe I need to watch an episode on singularity. Shout out to Del Tor McNeil. He says sometimes you got to be like a stamp and stick to one thing till it delivers. No true. Somebody asked me the other day, what's the best piece of, that question people love to have, what's the best piece of business advice you've ever been given? And I said, I have not followed it as I should, but that statement from Del Toro McNeil is probably Dr. Del Toro McNeil, excuse me. Don't text me, Del. Dr. Del. But it's probably one of the best things I've ever heard, one of the best pieces of advice that I have not listened to that I should listen to ever.
Yeah, it's good advice.
Just because you can do everything also, doesn't mean that you should.
Correct.
And we say this a lot in the coaching world.
Right.
Oh, well, people will tell me, I have all these skills, Cory. I can do this, I can do this, do this. Great.
Right.
Just because you can help everybody doesn't mean you should.
Correct.
Or that's going to be beneficial to you. So, all right, let's get into the pros.
Let's go.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. I like it.
All right. First pro, diverse reach.
Okay.
So access to a broader audience by having various platforms, right? Hitting them on social media, hitting them on email, working your SEO, looking at those different things. So now just immediately I get a broader audience.
Correct. Yeah. And I mean, the answer to so many of these things that we talk about, Cory, is it depends, right? It depends on who you're trying to reach, where they are, what they're doing. But if you are on multiple channels, by virtue of the fact that all of those channels have different approaches and attract different people, you are going to attract a broader audience that is going to be a more diverse audience.
Well,
100%.
I think part of the headache that people experience is even when they define the demographic, I don't know that has the level of accuracy. So I mean, forever TikTok was a young person's thing.
Correct.
Right? If I tell you the amount of things that are on my mother's credit card bill from a TikTok shop, you'd be amazed. Right. Completely shift, and my mother's in her 70s. Right. So what are we saying? Right. So that person that's like, our audience, we have an older audience, so we're going to stay away from that TikTok. Now, I don't know, again, product service matters, but she's got a lot of stuff.
Well, the other thing too, and I don't know the list, which we'll figure it out when we get there.
By design.
Right. But I say this to say that.
Yeah, don't be giving away anything don't be getting ahead of me. No, go ahead. Stop looking over here.
My ESPN hasn't kicked in yet.
The YouTube watches. LG, stop trying to look on the screen. I'm going to get one of the privacy screens so you can't see anything.
Or blind.
Yeah.
The reality of it, though, is even if you know who your target audience is and they're on that platform, the way you attract your target audience is different per platform. So you can't use the same approach with the same approach to content across platforms. And that's where I think some of the frustration comes in is if you're going to use those individual platforms or go across, whether it's TikTok or social, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever it is, they all have different approaches by design because that's what makes them unique. If they didn't have a different approach, you wouldn't need two of them. Right. So I think that's where some of the frustration comes in is how do I maximize the impact with my content on each of those platforms? And we'll get there on the con side or further down the list too. But I think that I think it's part audience, but also part approach.
Okay. When the church say amen. Yeah, I like that. Well, okay. So diverse reach, we agree on that. Number two, risk mitigation. Okay. Right. So, and I've dealt with clients in this area, right, where they were too deep into one thing. Okay. And I'm like, before we give up on this mode or whatever, we don't have cross data. We don't know, that golden goose could be on, that platform that we haven't had. So, so having risk mitigation in this case, right, reducing dependency on a single source. So if one platform underperforms, then of course others can compensate, right? Oh, YouTube's doing great for us. LinkedIn, not so much. Let's move our budget there. Let's look at what's working. Because, folks, the greatest hustle in marketing, and I say this all the time, and I say this to my friends who are digital marketers and own agencies all the time, the greatest hustle ever invented was we have to do some tests.
Right.
Well, Lon, we got to test it.
Right.
Oh, what type of ad? Do you think we should do this ad? Do you think we should be on Meta? Do you think we should have a billboard? Well, we got to test it. Right. And what we're going to need is your money to test it.
Correct.
Your money, our people will test it, and then we'll let you know what happens, and then we'll figure out what's best, and then you can give us more money to then go do that.
Correct. Well, then you can double, triple.
I have no accountability. Man, Lon, let's just wrap this up and start an agency. I think
there's some opportunity there.
The tester agency.
Right, exactly.
You pay, we test.
That's right. That's it. Well, and you go into risk mitigation, Cory. The reality of it is when we're dealing with social media, all of those platforms change their dynamics. They change the way that
Valpak mailers.
Correct. They all do.
Have
They all do. So they continue to evolve.
Right.
Which means that one platform that you may have success on this month may change some of their computations or whatever we call them, and you fall off a cliff there. And so if that's the only platform you're on, you talk about pros again and risk mitigation, you still have other platforms. If you're on other platforms, you still have other platforms to get some traction.
Right.
So 100%, I agree with that.
Yeah, and other methods, right? So, okay. And, listen, to a certain point, there's a Captain Obvious moment to some of this, right? But I think there are people who are sitting around wondering, am I doing too much? Because of the subset of gurus that are omnipresence gurus. And we've tried it, and we've just learned. We've tried in certain aspects. We've learned certain things. We've learned that, because then it's the question of, should I be here if it's not working, and defining what not working is.
Correct.
But should I be here, or is it I'm not doing it correctly?
Right.
I'm not working the algorithm correctly.
Right.
I'm not tagging correctly. I'm not hashtagging the graded, Willie H will be looking at some of our content and, oh, it's an A+, this is a B. This is because now the software rates your stuff. And now you're like, well, how much more ridiculous can we be to get an A out of this?
Right.
How do we make a C an A? And then I think the problem, and this is almost another show, but I think the problem is that at some point it just gets away from you and it's not even you anymore.
Right.
Like you're just trying to say, oh, this is a hot topic, so let me just start. And I see people who are like, this isn't even what you do. And they're like commenting on what, Puff Daddy is doing. Like, what's going on with that situation, just to get views, not really to have substance or anything. Like, I thought you were a dentist. Have you heard the latest investigation into Puff Daddy? Come get crowns now, $9.99 while you're at it. But let's get back to that. Too. Yeah, right. Like I don't even know.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, as much as it may be Captain Obvious, if you are trying to really do those Ben Franklin this thing, as they say, I think this is important. So diverse reach, of course, creating diversification, risk mitigation. So we've got a little going on in a lot of places.
Right.
Increased visibility.
Yes.
Okay. Higher chances of reaching potential customers at different stages of the buying journey.
Yes.
And that's different than just being than just looking at diversification of where I am.
Right.
This is now talking about high funnel, low funnel, mid funnel conversations.
Right. That
pesky 3%, 6% that's ready to buy now versus the other group that needs to be warmed up and introduced to you.
Right.
We put out I was looking at a report the other day that talked about, it was just a ridiculously high number. Like one of those numbers where you're like, is this true?
Okay.
But like it was a reputable source that had done the study. But it was talking about the amount of people that rely on what it was talking about is the lowered impact of the value of face-to-face selling.
Okay.
Because we think of that so much. I mean, you're a big relationship guy. You're a big face-to-face guy. And it was talking about why, and it's because so many people are already there in their mind on decisioning.
Right.
That element, they've already gotten so much information, they've already done so much research, or they've already kind of made up their minds. We've talked about this before, that getting in the one-to-one or some quasi version of that even in a virtual one-to-one kind of environment, it's not as effective as it used to be because people have already consumed, so much information. And we had a guy the other day, he'd been getting our newsletter for 7 months.
Right.
He's like, I looked at, I was learning about what you were doing and one of our products or one of our services. So, I'd been looking at what you were doing and kind of just, I've been on your newsletter. He said, I've been on your newsletter for like 7 months.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, I know. Because I, track you.
Because I watch it.
Because I track you, right? And I pulled it. And we have a database. We have this thing called a CRM here. But he's like, I've been on 7 months. I've been watching. And finally, I'm like, I think this could be valuable for me.
Oh, good.
Right now, if we talked to him 7 months ago,
right,
we wouldn't have gotten anywhere.
Correct.
No matter how, in my opinion, no matter how crafty we were, no matter how great our lines were, no matter how structured our pitch was to Jordan Belfort straight line selling system, no matter what, I don't think he was there for a variety of reasons potentially. That could be financially, that could be whatever.
Right.
So, he was in a nurture phase.
Right.
And luckily, our content, the value proposition continued to be there until it became,
right.
I strive for the all roads lead through me in some way, right? In some capacity, right? In something. But go ahead.
Well, one of the things that I talk about, I think timing is more important than frequency. What I think frequency does is it increases the likelihood that you're going to get the timing right.
It's TOMA, top of mind awareness.
Correct.
Yeah.
However, you've got to, the face-to-face, what that allowed us to do in the past, and still to a certain extent.
And I'm not saying I agree that face-to-face. I'm just making the point that this just makes the case from a marketing perspective, like going back to that point about the visibility.
Correct. Reach.
Because then it's like, I'm seeing you everywhere.
Right.
Power of retargeting, folks. If you're not involved in retargeting, you're not looking at that, you need to be looking into that because it's oh my goodness, I can't go anywhere.
Right. Well, it's by seeing you everywhere, as long as you're showing up the same way, you're establishing credibility.
Right.
And consistency establishes credibility. And so by going across a number of different platforms, as long as you're showing up the same way, you're establishing credibility. So for you, Cory, you've got the podcast, the Grow Business Podcast. You've got the network. You've got the coaching. You've got the newsletter. All of these things, and they all show up the same way. You show up the same way in all of those. So while this person's been getting the newsletter, also getting information from other sources, and because
better be watching the Grow Business Podcast also.
Well, and because it's fed through the newsletter too. So there's an opportunity for that. But all of it's consistent. And as long as you're across multiple channels and you're consistent in the way you show up, not necessarily the way you deliver the content, but the way you show up, then that's going to make you more credible. And so, yes, it increases your reach. It is a pro. If you show up differently on those different podcasts, that becomes a con. And we'll talk about that on another, on the other side.
Yeah, 100%. All right. We got two more. One, enhanced data insights.
Okay.
So the idea here, collecting data from multiple sources can provide a more comprehensive understanding of customer behavior and preferences.
Yes, because each of those platforms use data differently.
Well, and I love, because it's, so much of the secret sauce to what we do here is taking things from our daily lives and scenarios, right? And no, I got nothing against the people that are at the top of the mountain and now need something to do. So now they're waxing poetic about things, albeit many of those things might have worked 25 years ago. But it's just something about being in the game, actively that just has an interesting flair. Because what we've learned recently, and this could be a case, and what we're investigating is, are we doing it right or are we doing it wrong, right? What we've learned recently is, for one of our services, we thought LinkedIn was a no-brainer in terms of advertising.
Correct.
Right? This professional audience, it's a professional, it's for professionals and people who have expertise in that thing. But our lead gen has been much better on Meta.
Oh, interesting.
And Facebook and Instagram, where we thought it was lead cost per acquisition, cost per lead, all those all those data points.
Right.
It was abysmal. I mean, it was super high. The cost was just too high.
Right.
The juice was not worth the squeeze.
Right.
So now you're trying to dissect that. Again, professionals hire other professionals. So we're working with some outside people who supposed to do this all day, right? And say, hey, are we doing something wrong, or what is it? Because in our mind, it's a complete match.
Right.
But now we can make data decisions.
Okay.
Versus gut or feelings.
Right.
Feelings like the corner. So right, which is what a lot of people do.
Right.
Oh, I think this would be a great platform. Oh, I think the Valpak mailer. I think the billboard.
Right.
No, you like to see yourself in pictures. Right, that might be more interested. You want to drive by your billboard and point to it and have your friends send you text messages that they saw your billboard today.
Right, exactly.
The phone may not be ringing one iota. I pulled that one out.
Yes, you did.
Shout out to all my folks still use old words. They work just as good.
All the scientists.
Iota. I'm not after the Gen Z audience anyway. So unless you have 1 million followers and are a top influencer, then I'd love to talk to you. We're talking to professional business owners who've been in those trenches, right?
And the Greeks.
Data.
Iota.
Okay, there you go. I knew you'd help me. That's why you're here. Okay. Sometimes it goes over my head, LG. All right, here's the last one, and then we're going to switch. Okay. Before we end up with a part 1 and part 2. We learned our lesson. We haven't had to do part 1, part 2 in a long time, but that might be making a comeback here. Yeah. I will not be restricted.
Especially in this format.
Yeah. That's not my, I remember being on doing radio, and, you can say all you want. Geico commercials coming on.
Right, exactly.
Don't care how profound your message.
Right.
At 22 minutes and 32 seconds, it's coming on. So here, hey, that's why I built a studio.
That's the beauty of it. Right.
So I can hear myself talk every week. All right. So improved brand awareness.
Yes.
Consistent presence across various channels can strengthen brand recognition and recall.
Right. I'm
not in the market for a watch right now, but if I was in the market for a watch, what would I think of when I was?
Right.
And that becomes the key.
Right.
So everything, Rolex does with their advertisement, with their billboards, with Roger Federer or whoever they've got sponsoring is, I'm not in the market every day for a watch.
Right.
But I might be soon.
Right.
I'm drinking milk.
Yeah.
I'm small now.
There you go.
I'll be bigger later.
There you go.
Right. So thoughts before we move to cons?
Well, and consistent is two things. One, consistent is regularity, and consistent is also the same. So what I mean by that is consistent across all platforms means regular across all platforms.
Oh, I just realized something.
What's up?
I hadn't looked at all the information that I compiled. We're going to have to speed this up.
Okay.
Because I actually have pros and cons for multiple.
Okay.
Pros and cons for single.
Oh,
so we got like 14 more to get to.
All right, let's go. We're going 50.
Look at Willie Yates. Maybe it's going to be part 1 and 2. Okay.
I was going to say, multiple maybe 1 and single maybe.
We're going to hold the stories. No, but the stories is what's fun to me.
Yeah.
So, but okay. Right, you agree with that?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so we're talking about using multiple marketing sources. So that was the pros.
Yes.
Now we're going to do the cons to multiples.
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to give them to you, and then we'll talk about them.
Sure.
Okay. Higher costs.
Yes.
Complex management.
Yes.
Inconsistent messaging.
Okay.
diluted focus,
Yes.
and the learning curve.
Yes.
Now we'll unpack them.
Okay.
Higher cost seems pretty obvious.
That everything that followed the higher cost drives higher cost.
Yeah.
So your list,
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, higher cost is really the number one thing because everything that follows that, while it is true, it drives the number up.
Yeah.
It drives what it costs you, whether
Well,
it's
complex management, right? More time, effort, expertise. So now
People.
who do I have to hire? Who do I have to
Right.
bring in? Yep.
right, contractors, employees,
Agencies. Right.
all of that. Yes.
And hope they know what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and so yes, that's true. And then messaging.
Yep.
Again, we talked about each platform has its own most impactful messaging.
Right.
And we talk about being, are you a master of
Jack of all
one or
trades,
jack
master
of all
of
trades, right?
Correct.
And so if you're trying to do all of them, you're going to have a hard time being really
Right.
good at one of them. So,
And we're going through that now, right? Trying to, I want, if you go to, Instagram, official Cory Mosley, if you go there,
right,
I want you to see similar branding than if you go to TikTok.
correct,
Official Cory Mosley on TikTok, Cory Mosley on Twitter, X, whatever it is.
right,
YouTube, Cory Mosley. If you go to any of those areas,
Right.
CoryMosley.com,
Right.
we want you to have, right, the goal is to get that brand experience all the
Right.
way across, because otherwise you have fragmentation, and, that may not look good. Now, depending on your audience, I mean, you may not care. I see people who are very busy that have the worst websites I've seen in all of eternity.
right,
But like, I'm super busy. I don't
Right.
drive business from my website. I don't know that as a brand guy, that's going to be a tough sell to me
right,
as an excuse of why it looks terrible.
right,
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have you don't have to have a bad website. You could
Right.
have a simple, clean, good website
right,
and still make the same statement that, that's not how I drive my business. But you
Right.
can have a clean, it doesn't have to be a mess.
Yeah, you can have a simple one-page website that really is just a face page
Right,
that
correct.
that's consistent with
Correct.
your
Better
messaging.
than having some bad nonsense that you pull together with bad clip art.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Bad clip art.
So higher costs, complex management, the free stuff. I ain't paying for no Envato. I ain't paying for no what's the other one? Getty Image. I'm not paying those
Right,
prices.
Exactly.
This looks perfectly good. From 93. Okay. Diluted focus.
Yes.
So spreading yourself too thin. Oh, good Lord.
Right.
If there's ever one that I could think of, spreading yourself too thin, probably spreading your resources too thin, then creating suboptimal performance.
Well, again, impact is
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about. By spreading yourself too thin, you reduce your ability to have an impact on any of them.
And also that last one about the learning curve is also becomes a point, because
Yes.
now I got to learn these things. And I'll tell you that I don't have to do it hands on, but it's annoying to me.
Right.
Like in conversation,
Right.
like, oh, okay, great. We looked at the clip the other day, and the clip was like 1 minute and 35 seconds. I'm like, oh, that's great.
Right.
And then my team's like, well, we can't use that on Instagram.
Right. On
'Cause
the
it needs to
1
be a
minute,
minute.
on the 1 minute
Yeah,
platform.
we can't use that there. So we got
Right.
this great clip. So now what I'm supposed to do? Try to make this great 1 minute and 35 second clip a minute clip?
Right.
I didn't even get going until we hit a minute. I hadn't even got anything good out of my mouth. It was like a buildup.
Right.
So as we create this crescendo effect here, and I'm getting ready to drop some nuggets.
Right.
Clip.
Right. Well, and
It's
if
over.
if you drop the beginning, then you lose the buildup.
You-
If you drop the end,
yes.
then you lose the
Yes.
you
Yeah.
lose
Yeah.
the impact.
Right.
So again,
It's enough to drive you crazy.
yes, it is.
So-
And that's just across platforms. If you don't, and I think it's LinkedIn that there's a lot of conversation on LinkedIn that they change their algorithm as to reach.
Well, now you got to trick it. So like LinkedIn doesn't, and at the time of this recording, right?
Right.
LinkedIn doesn't like you to put links. They don't want you to put links in that leave LinkedIn.
Correct.
So you got the workaround, of course, is you don't post your link in your comments.
Comments, right?
I get why you don't want. I mean, they all built these bubbles, mouse traps for
Right.
so you can get the ad dollars and keep you there. So I get it.
Contained eyeballs, right?
But it's like, it's enough to drive you insane.
So going back to the con of this multiple platforms is it's hard to be any good across all of them. And
unless you have the team, I mean, it's almost somebody's job.
Right, unless each of them has somebody specific that's following that platform and stays on top of that algorithm.
Correct.
And sometimes that's why you're better off creating content and hiring a social media, firm,
right,
to produce it for you.
Professionals hire other professionals.
Right.
Yeah.
Go do what you do and then hire somebody.
There's so much DIY. It's
Well, the more you do yourself, the harder it is to do what you do best.
Okay. We're going to switch gears now.
Okay.
Now we're going to do pros and cons.
All right.
Rapid edition. On sticking to one marketing source.
Okay.
So we did the pros and cons of multiple.
Correct.
Now we do pros and cons of going deep into one marketing source, primary marketing source. All right. We'll start with the pros. Cost effective.
Yes.
So I'm gonna hit you with the pros, and then we'll jump to cons, and then we'll talk about it. Then we'll go to cons.
Okay.
Cost effective, simplicity, consistent messaging, focused effort, expertise development.
Yes.
Okay. Yes to all those.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
so go ahead.
Well, because you're developing expertise in one spot, it's going to be more cost effective for you, and you're going to be more impactful.
Right.
So, and then it allows you to be more consistent because, like you just said, a minute and a half on one platform is only a minute on the other. You get to focus on creating content specifically for that format, which means you get to maximize its effectiveness. And as that platform evolves, as those algorithms change, as whatever happens, if that's the one you're focused on, you're following it, you're paying attention to it, and you're locked in so that you can maximize it.
Yeah. What you said. When the church say amen. All right. So yeah, cost effective, simplicity. So easier to manage, track performance, dealing with those issues, stay abreast of that, consistent messaging. Right. Now we do have unified and consistent brand messaging without the risk of fragmentation.
Correct.
And the concentrated efforts ideally leads to better optimization and results.
Yes. Agreed.
And then you led with the last one, which was specializing in one platform can lead to a deeper understanding and more effective use of that channel.
100%.
And then, of course, you get good at it, and then you make a course.
Right. Or you can use that as a revenue generating tool.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Any more thought? It's amazing when we focus. Well, we got through that list pretty. We've been dilly-dallying, I guess, through the rest of the list. It's amazing when you're watching the clock how efficient you can get, right?
Well, exactly. And when we go one at a time, we have something to say about all of it.
Yeah.
When you read your list, we just put it all together.
It's like, wrap it up.
Exactly.
Wrap it all.
Exactly.
Okay, but I think, but again, the key, though, is that we do share the list. You now have the bullet points. So for those of people listening, is not lost in, well, what were the top, like I find sometimes people, are talking in different directions. You never know what the actual points were. Now we can go on tangents, or me, I guess what we're saying more than I say
we all do.
We can go on tangents,
right.
But no one will ever say they didn't get the bullet points,
right?
Like from what
they didn't finish. Right.
So those were the clear pros. Right. Now we'll go to the cons.
Okay.
Limited reach.
Yes.
So restricting the potential audience to users of a specific platform creates, you're missing out. Number 2, higher risk.
Okay.
So there's greater vulnerability. I've seen this happen with LinkedIn and a client of ours that was spending a tremendous amount of money on LinkedIn, and it was really the sole source. And it was hot for a while, and, algorithm, all these things that I'm convinced. I'm protected by free speech, right? I'm convinced that there are just a diabolical group of people in a room somewhere at all of these companies going, what can we do to mess with these people today?
Right. Lord have mercy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's because I'm just convinced. It's like, what can we do to mess with these people today? What can we do? Because we've all logged into some software,
right,
and it's completely reconfigured.
Right.
quote unquote, for a better user experience.
Right, based on customer feedback.
Right, after you got me using it this way for 2 years, you're going to now have me redo it. I just think that that's people's job. Their job is to mess with us. Because if we stay confused, it's like, have you ever read a cell phone bill statement?
No.
Yeah, and you should. And you're only reading it for one.
Right.
I've got everybody that I've ever known apparently is on my plan.
Okay.
So that bill is 127 pages.
Right.
Because it breaks down every call, every this, every that.
Right.
But dude, it's designed so that you don't want to read it.
Well, my bill's the same every month, and so
Yeah, cute. All right, cute. Okay, let's get to cons. How nice for you. All right. Oh, we started cons already. Okay,
Right.
yeah, we did. All right, so the limited reach.
Right.
My disdain for your comment made me conflummox.
just completely
Yeah.
derailed you.
So cons: limited reach, higher risk,
Right.
data limitations. So now it's limited insights from only one source may not give you the complete picture of consumer behavior.
Correct.
Although there's a lot of cross-platform usage, but then there's stagnation risk.
Okay.
So dependence on one channel hindering your growth opportunities.
Right.
Period. Right.
Yeah.
What you might expect. And then the last one, and we'll talk about it as a whole, is competitive disadvantage. Competitors using multiple channels might outpace those relying on a single source.
Yes.
So I think it's important, I want to say, because when we talk, many times we hone in on social media.
Right.
Because we've referenced Meta, LinkedIn.
Right.
I've tried to throw in some Valp, but there's a lot of different advertising mediums.
Correct.
To get your word out.
Right.
So one of the questions is, to me, am I maximizing? Right? So if I have a source, this is also the argument in the marketing community of organic versus paid media.
Right.
Or paid. And again, you've got, depending on what you do,
Right.
if I sell SEO, organic, organic is where it is. People got to find you, got to find you.
Right.
But if I sell paid media, then my ad is going to be, why are you giving yourself a headache trying to put out value posts?
Right.
Who cares about that when your audience is in the market right now? You can go right to them.
Right. And you can control the narrative.
Right. Who's right and who's wrong? I mean,
Right.
arguably. I mean, if I want leads tomorrow, paid media is right.
Correct.
If I want people to find me down the line, or I want to cultivate a long-term piece, then of course I can't ignore some of the organic aspects of that. Right. But there are people who, will build their company purely based on paid media.
Right.
They don't care about referrals. They don't care about any of that stuff. And it's just new customer acquisition and managing the new customer acquisition in connection to what you sell.
Correct.
The low ticket, high ticket conversation everybody has.
That's correct.
Right. So I got to sell a lot of, I'm as you know, I'm in the candy business also, got to sell a lot of brittle.
Right.
When the brittle's $15. So how I look at our online advertising and our budget and spend on a place like, I'm not advertising brittle on LinkedIn. Right. So there's some obvious things you want to look at, but your control mechanism is different than if you sell a $10,000 item or a $100,000 item.
It is. And when, so, we'll talk about the paid media versus organic. The paid media, you have a lot more control over the messaging. You have a lot more control over the format. Mm-hmm, you have a lot more control over who you're targeting and how you directly want to get to them. Organic, and it's how quickly do you have to make money? How quickly do you have to be profitable? How much budget do you have to work with? Right. All of those things. Yep. I think there was, what was the second to the last one? That
Stagnation risk?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is something that I think is underappreciated. Because if you're saying the same thing to the same people all the time, then it becomes fatigue. Or it can become fatigue.
Yeah, I think if you're recycling messages, but if I think if you're in your lane, because the other argument is something won't be relevant to someone until it's relevant.
Right, timing.
To them.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, I don't need to change my newspaper ad because it doesn't matter. Right. Because it's a new audience. I don't need to change my, I know we've had, whether on air or off air, we've had the keynote speaking story 20 years ago when I would speak, I would neurotically change my presentation
Right.
like every time.
Right.
And I was doing an event with a guy named Roy Vaden, who obviously you know very well.
Right.
And, you know, he did his thing. And I'm like, you know, how many times? I'm like, do you ever change that? He said, well, let me ask you a question. How many people in that audience you think knew who I was? I said, not many. You were new to this audience.
Right.
He said, so they don't know. They weren't in the audience last week.
Right.
So the message is still, the key points are there. The refinement of the message is there. The value of the message is there.
Yeah.
Why are you changing it for a group of people who have never heard you? Even for me, the majority of that room had never heard me before.
Right.
So the fact that I had the fact that I did the same presentation a week ago had zero relevance.
Right.
Because the advantage that I have is I can get better at the content.
Correct.
Instead of change. But that was just a little mindset shift.
Right.
And smart people can be affected by, smart people can benefit from small mindset shifts as well.
True.
If they're open to it.
True. Well, timing and you may hear the same thing 2 times in a row, but you don't hear it the same way. You're in a different place. Your timing's different. What you need is different. Maybe the first time you heard it, you know, you had an issue with your kids at school that weren't really paying attention. This time you are because you're focused on it. So all those things are true.
So my fears, I was thinking, as you were finishing your thought here, my fear with this pros and cons experiment is like people go through the episode with no clarity.
Right. Well, okay.
with no clarity on.
Right.
Because I think sometimes people just prefer to be told, you know, what to do.
Right.
Where here, I think there's a tremendous amount of value in thinking for yourself, but I think it's more important. DK kills more advancement than anything else, and DK is deficiency of knowledge.
Okay.
So people make good decisions, bad decisions, sometimes, many times bad, based on deficiency of knowledge.
Okay.
Not intentional. Nothing was wrong with them.
Right.
They just didn't know. And they say you don't know what you don't know, right? They just didn't know. So from my perspective here, as you battle with that, I can't go, you should just do one channel.
Right.
Because anybody who is giving you definitive information like that, my challenge is at best, it's based on their personal experience. Correct. So yes, if you built your business just doing Facebook ads, of course your statement is going to be, even if you don't, and I'm not saying that you may not have anything to do with selling Facebook ads or being an agency, just in general, you speaking to your experience.
Correct.
That's the tweak of that versus somebody else now who has that same, you know, statement or the same situation.
Right.
But you know what? I built my business by having, you know, leads coming in from different places.
Right.
You've got to look at, you talked about it, your resources.
Right.
You've got to look at where you are in your business. You got to look at what you're trying to accomplish. Right. You know, I have this conversation with my social media friends. My intent is not sensational follower status. Right. Like I'm way too private for that, right? You know, walking around my house all day with it. And I'm not knocking anybody that does that, because there's people that do that and build tremendous businesses. That's just not for me. But I do want to have content that matters to the people that I'm trying to make it matter for, or that I'm trying to help, or the problems, right, we're trying to solve. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Well, it's good. I mean,
we've unpacked a lot. So yeah, I mean, I want you. I'm sorry if we didn't solve it for you today, but our goal here is to give you a framework, because many people will not make a decision because they won't sit down to make a decision. Right. Because now they've got to go through this process and do these pros and cons, and they don't really quite know what the pros and cons are. So that's what, you know, we hopefully accomplish today, you know, as we wrap up.
Yeah, I think what I like about this pros and cons is it allows whoever's listening, and thanks for coming, and thanks for coming back, and next time bring a friend. But I think what it allows the people that are listening to do is to personalize it for their business. What resources do they have, like you talked about? What resources do they have? What are they trying to accomplish? Who are they trying to reach? What do they have the capacity to do? And take that and take these pros and cons and personalize it, and then say, okay, this makes the most sense for my situation, my business, my circumstance, and my team. And it's not going to be the same for everybody. And that's why we're doing the pros and cons, because
Right.
we know it's not
That's
going
right.
to be the same for everybody listening.
That's right. It's malpractice as far as I'm concerned
Right.
to just go, hey, you must do it this way.
Right.
All right. I like it.
Yeah.
You like it? Feels good?
Yeah, it does feel good. And hopefully
Yeah.
as the listeners, get more of this pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
They've been great about providing feedback about
Yes.
episodes leading up to this. So look forward to, please, send us a note and tell us what you think
We
about
love
this.
5-star reviews.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
We'll leave it there. Then
Yeah.
we'll start donations.
Yeah. We'll start turning cups
Turn
around
on
and
the
making
turn on
labels
the turn on
available.
the we got to get on one of those sources, Willie H, where you send us some donations.
Exactly.
We like donations
Yeah,
here.
we'll put our tin cup
Yeah,
out,
that's right.
out on the internet.
Why not? Yeah, Patreon. Yeah. We have to look into that.
Right.
Maybe we'll put Lon on OnlyFans. All right, we're gonna get out of here.
Ain't even right.
Shame. It's not all bad. There's some people sharing actual education, I think, on there. I don't know.
Never been there. I couldn't tell you.
Right. Wink. All right, folks, we're getting out of here now. Before we start lying. Listen,
Lord
as
have
always,
mercy.
yeah, there you go. That was good. We ain't seen anything from Willie H in a while. We are, as always, just tremendously thankful that you continue coming back every week. As Lon said, share a friend. If you know a business owner, somebody that can, use a little levity, but also get some good information, have a good time while they're getting education. We'd love to have them there. And you can find us anywhere. Grow Business Podcast with Cory Mosley on any of the sites that matter, that you stream to, including YouTube as well. And I also invite you to learn more about our program, Position for Growth. You can go to CoryMosley.com, the all-new CoryMosley.com to see that. And we're going to leave it there.
Sounds good.
Lon Graham, thank you for joining us as always.
Thank you, Cory.
On
Appreciate
behalf of myself and Willie H., we thank you, and we look forward to having you. 5-star reviews, folks.
Please.
5 stars, just like Uber. 5 stars. Willie H., take us out. Pros and cons.
Like in the Equalizer 2, Denzel walks out and goes, 5 stars,
Yeah,
Junior.
5 stars. That's right.
5 stars, Junior.
That's right. He did it after he broke his hand.
What's your name?
Listen, you had to pay.
Right.
He couldn't let you off.
Right.
That's a great movie series. That's a movie I can watch any Equalizer anytime.
I haven't seen 3 yet, but
Oh,
1 and
my
2
goodness.
I really enjoyed.
Yeah,
and
3's
still
good.
do.
I mean, they're all 3's a little slightly different, but it ends the same.
Right.
He's got to equalize.
Right. Well, and he's, is it Antoine Fuqua?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, they
him,
work so well together.
They really bring out
Yeah.
the best in each other.
Yeah, for sure.